Okay, we're
Yes.
on.
Took
We're
a
here.
second there.
I am once again rocking the Gritty Mama's hat, trying to promote this bad boy. I've already got several reservations for pre-orders, but I'm not going to wear it this whole time because you can't see my eyes. There's like a shadow. But remember, the back has this awesome lacing where you can fit your ponytail in the hole of your choice.
Are we 12?
I know.
Oh,
And yeah, we are making record time tonight. It is a Thursday night, 8:20, and
we've already had to fix some problems.
yeah, we've had
Troubleshoot.
some podcasting issues, and it's middle of the week, so I don't know if we're more tired or just as tired, but we're here, and we hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. And I'm sure everybody is running around with their heads cut off, getting ready for Christmas and all of the holiday hustle bustle. And with Christmas coming and with the New Year coming, and if you're like me and you have a lot of kids, I have a birthday a month. I have like 2 months out of the year where there's no birthday, and
It's
it's
wild.
blessed February and March.
And then there's Valentine's Day.
I know, and St. Patrick's Day still, but I cherish those 2 months because it's like the one time out of the year where I am not like, this sounds terrible. It makes me sound like a terrible mother where I'm not thinking about who do I have to buy something for. But Kenya she turned 8 in November. And so if you are familiar with the LDS Church or are a member of it, you know that 8 years old is a big deal in the faith.
It is.
Because we get baptized and we become a member of the Church of Jesus Christ.
Take on Jesus' name.
Yep. And make all those promises. If you are familiar also with the Kit Kat promise, are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it.
Yes, it's the very trendy talk that is always given at baptisms. They use a Kit Kat bar, and the KAT stands for keep the commandments, always remember him, and take his name upon you for cats. So they'd give a Kit Kat for a baptism.
I've always seen the bear.
I don't know the bear.
Like bear one another's burdens.
Oh.
Bear Christ's name. And there's a third one, but now I can't remember. So
bear it's got to do something with the commandments. But all that to say, we have a baptism coming up, and anytime there's a baptism, and then also January is coming up, and new little deacons are ordained and teachers are ordained. And in our church, we have kind of this line of authority and priesthood, or is that how you would say it?
Yeah, the priesthood line of authority. That works.
Yeah. Deacon is like the 11, 12, 13-year-olds. Teacher, I'm guessing, are 14 and 15. Something like that.
Yeah.
And then the priests are 16, 17. Then you become an elder at 18, I think.
Yeah.
I think I have that down. I never focused or cared because I was always a girl. We didn't have to worry about passing the sacrament. We didn't have to, and there's times where women will say, well, why, or even my girls, well, why don't we pass the sacrament? Why is it always the boys? And I'm like, look, sit back. Relax and let them serve us, let them.
Well, our ward has started doing the girls welcome everybody to church.
That's the new the young women.
So now they're greeters.
Yeah, they are greeters. So we have different roles, right? I'm like, well, we give babies, we birth babies, let them do this, because if we start taking over the sacrament, then the men will just sit back and relax while we do all the work.
I have said something to that effect before, like, I'm really happy they have something to do that I don't have to do. Like, exactly. I'm totally okay with that.
So, but this brings up lots of emotions. This is a podcast I've been thinking about for a long time. And I think it's a good time to talk about it because the time is now. We've got an ordination coming up in my family. We have a baptism coming up in my family. And that brings up a lot of pain. It brings up a lot of emotions and a lot of trigger points. I mean, it's like you're re-traumatized, so to speak, because again, when he left the family, it's as if he died overnight, and then suddenly you see him.
Well, you don't see him even when he comes to get the kids.
No.
You guys do the exchange at a church, right?
Yep. So I haven't seen him physically in months.
If you're not in court, these ordinations and things are the time that you see him. So you're mixing like emotional trauma with what should be a spiritual joy.
Yeah.
And that is really confusing and hard to take emotionally and process. It's a really hard thing to process.
It is. And I mean, I speak, I think, for all women out there who are who have gone through high conflict or a painful separation, divorce, whatever you want, death. I mean, it is like a death, right? So
well, you have to mourn, as Dr. Deloney would say, you have to mourn what was, the relationship that was.
Yeah, grieving what it was. And then, like, I mean, I remember we've had now 2 baptisms and I think 2 ordinations. Xander was ordained a deacon, and I mean, I don't know if we talk about that now, or I think that I will, because it's a big beefy part of the story. But when the petitioner first left, my bishop said to me, he actually called me in to talk with him. And this is why I believe in the mantle of a bishop and the calling of a bishop, because I never would have gone into him. How often have you gone into your bishop? I mean, on a personal level.
I don't think ever.
Right?
I mean,
I know.
Tithing, yes. Temple recommends, yes. Callings, yes. Like, I have lots of memories going through my head of being with the bishop, but I don't think I've ever called and said, I need an appointment with the bishop.
And I had neither, and I never would have, because I'm going to go to my dad first. I'm going to go to my brother. I'm going to talk to a girlfriend, and, I don't want to trouble the bishop more. I grew up with a dad that was gone a lot with church things, with people who needed help, and we were always a little bug. Dad's at the church. I mean, he was serving, he was doing what he needed to do, and I think about it now, and he was sacrificing, and he was giving his time, talents, and everything he had. It's what we covenant to do. And so I'm proud of that. But as little kids, we were like, oh, he's always gone. So I never wanted to trouble the bishop or his counselors, but and I never would have. But it was the bishop who called me in and said, I want to talk to you. Are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine.
You did?
I brushed him off. That I wasn't in his office.
Okay.
This was just in passing. And then Ari was about to be interviewed for his baptism by the bishop, and I think the petitioner must have been touched by the Spirit and didn't realize, because he had, it's a long story. He had left, but he came back. It doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. But he was home at the time, is what I'm trying to say, and I said, would you like to go with Ari for he had already told me he was leaving. So it was already painful and awkward, but I said, would you like to go to the baptismal interview with Ari? And he said, no, I think you should go. And I was like, okay. So I took Ari to the interview, and then when Ari was done, the bishop again, the second time in the same day, said, are you sure you're okay? Something just seems off.
And so the bishop didn't know yet?
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
That's why I'm like saying, oh my gosh, like,
okay,
the mantle is real.
He felt it.
He did. And so I, of course, broke down into tears. Like, he doesn't want to stay married. He wants to leave. He's done. He wants out, all the things. And that's when he asked, and we had just had the baptismal interview with Ari, and he said to me, well, now this begs the question, do we have him baptize Ari? If he has treated you like this, if he has decided he wants out and is going to leave, because I shared other things with him, not just that he wanted to leave, but like the reasons he was telling me that he was leaving, and in the manner that he told me, were all, a part of this discussion. And he said, well, then that makes me wonder if he should even be baptizing. And I remember saying, if you take that from him, I will be the one that's punished. He'll never let me live that down, and I'm sure that's the same for a lot of women who have been in this position where you're blamed and punished if they don't get their rights or privileges to whatever it may be.
Because let's pause for a second and say, for people who aren't LDS, it is very common and traditional for the dad to baptize their own kid. It's not required by any means, and there's tons of baptisms that don't follow in that manner, in that pattern, but it is just generally assumed that if an 8-year-old child is going to get baptized, that if it's not a dad, it's going to be like, sometimes there'll be an older brother that will do it or something like that. Like, anyway, so
it's a rite of passage.
A lot of fathers, I think, look forward to it.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's very cultural here in Utah. I'm assuming everywhere else, but like, you have dad dressed in white and daughter or son dressed in white next to them, and that's like the picture that's in every Mormon scrapbook.
Well, I would also say, so I didn't know if I'd bring this up or not, but when one of my kids got baptized, my brother is like our favorite human on the planet, and he lived far away. And they thought, if we invite him to baptize, then we can fly him in and we'll surprise mom. And like, she'll be so happy because her favorite person is here and it will be this fun party. And so they actually invited my brother to do the baptizing. And, which, I mean, I didn't know till the day of, and it was fantastic, all the things. However,
wait, you didn't know till the day of?
No, they surprised me that he was coming in and that he was going to do it, right? It was either the day of or whenever he arrived. It was like the day before, the day of something. Like, they made a scavenger hunt of envelopes for me to tell me, and
wow,
because they just know this is the sibling that I named a kid after. So he's like my bestie, right? Like, I love this guy. But the conversations that came after that were like, well, was your husband not worthy? Did he not want to? Does he
really?
like yeah, because there's
it's
this
assumed,
cultural,
it's implied,
and it's like familial. Like, Idaho is just a lot like, I mean, Southeast Idaho is basically like Utah, you know, lots of members there, and some of the similar cultural things. And that was kind of the assumption that was made. Like, why wouldn't he want to have that privilege of baptizing his own kid? And my husband's not really like that, you know. He's just,
so he was on board.
Yeah, he's done it for several of our kids, but he didn't do it that time, and he was totally fine with it.
Yeah.
But I think there are assumptions made when you don't. And so that's another thing to think of, is like, well, if the bishop was to take that, is the petitioner going to worry about how it looks?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And so when I said to him, this is not going to be good for me, you know, legally speaking, or even emotionally, I guess, at this point, I'm still trying to save the marriage. I don't think he's really going to go through with it. I'm doing everything that I can to basically change my whole being to what he wanted me to be, because I wasn't enough, I felt, right? I wasn't this, I wasn't that. If only I had been this, you wouldn't be wanting to leave in the first place. You're blaming and you're gaslighting yourself. And so I said, if you take that from him, then this is going to like foil the plans, you know, of him coming back to me. And so anyway, he did baptize Ari, and it was extremely awkward because nobody knew but me and the bishop. Nobody knew at the time. And I remember seeing him at the baptism. That was the first time I had seen him in a week, because he had taken off for Vegas, but came back the day of the baptism and left an hour after the baptism on a flight back to Vegas, like in and out. And he wasn't wearing his wedding ring. And that was after 6 days. And I was just like, oh my gosh, he's already removed it. Like, I was trying not to just break down into tears. And my heart was racing, beating out of my chest at this, because I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to do anything wrong to make him be like, oh yeah, see, that's why I'm leaving. And it was turmoil. And I'm like so sad looking at myself. I know, because he had no ring on, and I'm just like staring at him baptizing Ari, and it was painful. And so,
no wonder all of these have such triggering effects on you.
I know, because here we are again, right? Kenya's turning 8, or she is 8, and
wait,
it's time to get baptized.
Have you had one in the middle of that?
So yes, so Treyu was baptized after that. And let me say that in the church, it's up to the person getting baptized who they choose to have baptize them. I said that in a weird way, but you get to choose who baptizes you.
In a healthy marriage, if everything is healthy in these relationships and parents do what they're supposed to and put their kid first, it is very much so something that you say to your kid, well, who do you want to baptize you? Like, it's not who mom wants. It's not, well, first, do you want to be baptized? It is their choice. Just because you're 8 does not mean you have to get baptized. 2, who would you like to do it? And if you have a healthy marriage, then the mom and dad are both like, great, we're on board. Let's do it the way you want. But if there's unresolved feelings, if there's bad relationships or whatever, it's not that easy. It's, well, I want you to do this, or I want you to do that, or mom, they can gaslight. Unhealthy relationships lead to poor decisions. Yeah. Let's just say that. So it becomes, my point is that it becomes not about the kid.
Yeah. Right.
So it's supposed to be about the kid and the covenants they're making. That's what it's supposed to be.
It is. And I think what's difficult about that is, I think probably only in LDS divorce decrees does it state father will have the right and privilege to all priesthood ordinations in the LDS faith.
Well, the LDS church is the only one that has these kinds of things. Yeah,
but that is in decrees all the time, because, you know, I mean, for obvious reasons, lots of mothers don't want the dad to perform it if he has been abusive to her, if he has, whatever. Other parents who have maybe separated amicably are all for it. Dad baptizing the kid, even if they're divorced. But in my case, I did not have a divorce decree at this point. I was just hoping that he would come home. But having said that, both Ari and Treyu chose him. And even though it stung, of course I was going to be like, okay, even I had to push my pride aside, right?
Yeah, if that's what they want, then great.
That's what they wanted. But I was also thinking to myself, from my first interview with the bishop, well, is he going to be able to? Because things have now transpired since Ari, and then a year and a half goes by because I'm having a baptism every year and a half.
Right. Right. That's why I was like, wait, there was another one in
I
there.
know, exactly. So every 18 months, I have a new baptism. I would have a new baby every 18 months. And so they're following like just right in the footsteps of the other. And so I wondered if it would be the same thing. I wondered if he would say, well, should we allow him to? But at this point, the petitioner is no longer in my ward and is no longer under the jurisdiction or stewardship of the bishop, right. My bishop. So at that point, then it gets tricky and it gets complicated because you have two bishops both vying for their ward member. And it was complex and it was upsetting, and it is and I'll just say the words, it was degrading because and in between all of that was an ordination for Xander to become a deacon. So before second baptism happens, Xander is 11 and becoming a deacon, and he wants now grandpa to ordain him. And I was like thrilled because it would, I felt that was better for me, right? But that's, luckily he wanted him.
Say you didn't tell him to do that. That's just
no, I didn't persuade him. I didn't coerce him. I didn't manipulate him. But I mean, to be candid, I was like, oh God, that's just human nature when I've been so destroyed.
Well, okay, let's just pause for just a second because I have to tell you this thing that Lynn Scoresby, the best therapist. He was a BYU professor, but I saw him in the capacity of a therapist, right? Yeah. And he's amazing. But one of the things that he taught me is if you are sitting on a park bench and you're anxious for whatever reason, doesn't matter. You're sitting on this park bench, you have never seen a cat before, and in walks a cat across you, okay? When you see a cat the next time, what emotion are you going to feel?
Startled, nervous, scared,
anxiety.
Anxious. Yeah.
Like if you're sitting here and you're already anxious and then you see something during that event, it's going to trigger you. Yeah. I don't believe he used that word, but you're going to trigger, right? So here you are, you've never been divorced or left before.
Yeah.
Like you have this thing going on the back part of the back burner. What am I trying to say?
Yeah.
And then you have this baptism. And now every time you have a baptism, it's like this dang cat that comes back, right? And so I'm just putting these pieces together from like a psychological standpoint. Yeah. Like, of course, when you are talking about these religious things that are coming up like that, it's going to bring you right back to that place. Yeah. So of course, Julie, you're going to say, the cat's literally back in the bag. Exactly. I don't have to see the freaking cat,
Yeah.
And nobody can blame you.
Yeah. And nobody can blame you. I'll be honest about that. And I think that there's so many women that are like, I'm sure there are women and men, or whoever, because the women don't do the ordinations, but I'm sure there are cases where women do persuade and do coerce. But that was not what I was doing. And I didn't realize that even by me being relieved that he chose my dad, that it was going to actually cause more problems. So
who told the petitioner?
My dad was respectable and honorable enough that he sent a message to the petitioner and said, I just want to let you know that Xander has asked me to ordain him. And I said that I would be happy to. And the petitioner responded with, thank you for letting me know. And that was it. He didn't ask what time. He didn't ask when. He didn't ask where.
Because another thing for people who are not LDS, when you are like confirmed a member of the church after baptism, or when men are set apart or ordained, or when anybody is set apart, because men and women do that too. But there's a circle. There's the voice of the blessing or of the ordination, which is what you're talking about.
Yes,
that
who
your
gives
dad
the
would
blessing.
do, right? But there is no reason. I actually read up on this. There's no reason that he couldn't have participated in the whole circle. So if it's about your kid, and if it's about your kid and not about you, and you're totally happy with whoever's the mouthpiece of this blessing, you show up and you stand in that circle.
Yeah.
Is that all right to say?
Yeah. I mean, because it's in the handbook.
But it's from the perspective of emotional, of a healthy emotional relationship and boundaries and an understanding of the ordinance itself. Like, you still want to be in the circle. Mm-hmm. You still want to be part of it. Just because you're not the voice doesn't mean that it's not cool. It's considered in our culture a right and a privilege when somebody is blessing a baby or confirming after a baptism or an ordination to be asked to come and stand in the circle. Mm-hmm. Right. And then they all, again, for people who don't understand our kind of funny culture, the person receiving the blessing or the ordination, they're in the center of a circle of men, and those men lay their hands on their head and they set them apart in that calling or that ordination. Mm-hmm. And there's one person that's the mouthpiece that says the prayer, basically. Yeah. So when you talk about an ordination, you have to also remember that it's not just a one person event. If that makes sense. There's
several people that can come, but the problem that I was having was that my kids didn't want to come. So lots of times family members will be there for the ordination of the kid, becoming a deacon or a teacher or a priest or whatever. My kids didn't want to come if the petitioner was going to be there. Mm. So that is tricky. And then I had another issue where...
And if they don't come, are you in trouble? Do they have to come to that? Because it's not like
no, I don't think they have to. No, okay. No. But even at the baptism, some of my family members were out of town. Other family members did not want to come because they couldn't be honest with themselves by standing in the circle with the petitioner. Hmm. So they didn't even come to the baptism because they couldn't bring themselves. And that sounds harsh. And that sounds
was it the baptism or the ordination?
That one was the baptism.
Really?
Yeah. Some of them were out of town. So it was a smaller baptism because they couldn't bear the thought of, I don't hold it against them because I was feeling the same way, mm-hmm. But I mean, it just brings up so many emotions, and it's just like this toxic feeling. I hate to say the word, but it was just this toxicity, this cancer that you want to be relieved of, and you want to be excited, but instead it's like,
you feel
you dread
a sense of dread, but also guilt because you should be happy. You should be focusing on the ordinance, and all you can focus on is.
Mm-hmm. And I even all I do is stare at his fingers. Isn't that so dumb? I mean, 3.5 years later, I'm looking at his fingers because, I mean, it's not a promise ring. It's not an engagement ring. It is a ring that my sweet viewers pitched in to buy for me that has the birthstones of each of my kids.
Which was a cute idea.
Yeah. And they did that so that it wasn't so painful when I actually did take off my wedding ring. And in fact, as I was talking about in the last podcast, when my dad said, "Why are you still wearing your wedding ring?" And I was like, "Well, because I'm still sealed." And that's when he said, that was broken a long time ago. It was then that very night that I ripped the ring off and I sold it at a pawn shop for $150, might I add. Fake. Anyway, but I digress. Where were we? Just
seeing him and looking at his hands.
Yeah, I'm looking at his fingers.
In that moment, you feel guilty because instead of feeling the joy and the excitement for your kid and all of that, you're just focusing on the trauma. That's where your nervous system is to blame for a lot of this, right? That's where your nervous system goes. And I think when I think of the conflict that there's a few conflicts I can think of with different people in my life, and I do what I can to avoid the situation myself, right? But the people that I'm thinking of are far enough away that I can do a pretty good job of that. But there's nothing you can do when you have 8 kids with somebody to never see them. No. There's nothing you can do.
Well, and I think the other thing that was difficult for me, and this is not to pat my own back or toot my own horn, but for other women that are experiencing this or have in the past, I did the program. I planned the baptism. I rehearsed with the kids the musical number. I found the talks. I found someone to lead the music, someone to play the piano. I got the white clothing. I set up the chairs. I got the desserts.
And you did it all. You were the event planner.
And the petitioner showed up as per usual.
Right? I was gonna say that sounds familiar, just with motherhood in general.
Showed up, and not that he received all the glory, because that's not what this is, but it was like there was the pinnacle, right? Standing in the font, father and son, and I'm just like on the sidelines, you know. Not that I'm like, look at me, but it just was like, this is unbelievable. The unfairness, right? It just feels degrading. It felt wrong.
Well, I think part of the feeling, I'm just putting this together now, so tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in these moments, like our kids are used to seeing us. I mean, like I'm right now, I'm thinking about Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was joking with some moms today, like, when we would love Christmas too if we showed up Christmas morning and everybody had all these things and they were magically
but I got a robe.
wrapped. And
have you seen that?
Oh no,
Saturday Night Live. But I got a robe.
But if you like if you have this magical thing created for you and you show up and it's wonderful, like how nice would that be, right? But it's like the idea of the Disneyland parent, like you're the everyday parent and you put forth all of this effort and it's what's expected of you and you feel like your kids don't recognize it. And then the other parent who does absolutely nothing, but they haven't seen in such a long time. So they're just, oh, there he is. And he's gracing us with his presence. Yep. So they're so excited to see him. And you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I put forth so much effort for you every day. And I don't get that hug. I don't get the whites of your eyes. I don't get that attention. It's like, I think that's part of it, is realizing that like you put forth so much effort hoping that one day when your own kids are doing this for their kids, they'll wake up and be like, my mom was freaking awesome that she did all these things, but they are just used to it. It's like, the fact that a fish is swimming in water and doesn't even know that they're in water.
Right. And it's like when he would come home from trips, like a 2-week, like for example, a Tabernacle Choir 2-week trip. I would go quick to the pharmacy and just buy a bunch of treats, or like 8 special little trinkets or keychains, and I'd give them to him and I'd say, here, give this to them, as if you brought it home for them for a souvenir. Oh, and he ate that up. He was just like, look what I brought home for you. And I had gone and purchased it really quick because I just knew it wasn't something on his mind. I just knew it wasn't going to happen, and I knew that it would make the times that he was taking off again more bearable, because Dad's going to bring home a little treat for us.
Well, the idea with the treat is it's symbolic of Dad hasn't forgotten us when he's gone. Right. When he leaves, he's still thinking about us.
So I did a lot of protecting and a lot of defending and a lot of, relationship building. And it wasn't my relationship to build. I mean, so all of that, okay? So like, you get the big picture of all of it. And this isn't, I'm not trying to be this big feminist and say the women do everything, we're responsible for all of it, but life is better, more magical, more comfortable, more convenient with women. Men live longer when they are married to women. Like, we just make the world a better place.
We are more, in general, obviously there's going to be men that fit this and women that don't. Mm-hmm. I understand this. It's a big generalization. But women are more tender, more thoughtful. They see more, they act more on what they see. They're more intuitive, right? Yeah. And I would say generally more selfless. And we're programmed to do different things and be different. It's like, why we make a good team? Yep. Because I could say the same with my husband, right? Like, he goes and does stuff and is way more successful out of the house than I ever would be, because those aren't my... I mean, that's not true. He keeps trying to tell me that I should go be a software salesman. He's like, you go sell software and I'll retire. I'm like, oh yeah, whatever.
You'd be so good at it.
He just, because I just love people and want to talk forever. He's like, oh, you could go do it. So I'm not saying I couldn't make a living, but he uses the skills that he has to be very successful so that I can do what I do. Exactly. Yeah. We're a team and it's meant to be that way.
And I don't think I didn't have a problem with it, because we were both coming into the marriage under the understanding that we would have traditional roles. Mm-hmm. He would work outside of the home, although I was a sugar mama for 5 years straight, until he became a citizen, until he could drive, all those things. But once I started having kids, I was happy to do all the intuitive, thoughtful things. hoping and wishing that he would kind of keep his end of the bargain, which was not always happening. I think that's what made it so frustrating, because I was like, well, at least set up the chairs, at least put them away. But he took off right after the baptism. So this gets into the next conversation that I had with my bishop upon the ordination. And now time has passed and legal papers have been filed. A lot of arguing back and forth, a lot of hurtful things. I was called
mediation.
Mediation, I think, had happened at this point.
When you do mediation, maybe it's different every time, but are you seeing him face to face? Are you in two different rooms?
We were in two different rooms.
Okay.
Well, we weren't even in the same building.
Okay.
So the mediator was talking to us in a room, and then he'd go on Zoom and talk to them while he was at their office. But some people have had to do it at the same room, in the same room, at the same table. Like that sounds like torture.
I actually have a friend that was a mediator for a while, and when she tells me the story of it, it's actually wild. Like she spent all day with a couple who was fighting over who got the kitchen table, and she'd had it, and she goes, do you guys realize that you just spent more paying me than your table is worth? So do you realize this? So it's so dumb. I think maybe with COVID, it probably has changed some things too, where people do a lot more Zoom calls and things. And so maybe that's better. Yeah.
Because even with the deposition where you're questioned for 4 hours, I was like, do I have to sit and luckily he was in a different room, but listening, like spying, listening. Because then he would, and I did the same thing. He would text his lawyer and ask her this, what about this?
Yeah.
And so you'd hear the phones pinging while you're in this horrible deposition, just being grilled by opposing counsel who already like hates you, and just wants you to fail. And anyway, so I've been called a liar. I've been called toxic. I have been called unfit. I've been accused of poisoning the community. I've been accused of the smear campaign, of disparaging, defaming. I'm the reason he can't get work.
What's the word to describe when you won't let the kids see him? Or
alienation.
Alienation, yeah.
Accused of alienation and of gatekeeping. And these attorneys are trying to get around words. So now the word alienation is, they try to steer clear of that because it has such a bad connotation, because now we're all like, the alienation, it's an alienation industry. Now they're saying, well, the child has aligned with the other parent.
Oh, please.
Or they'll say there's enmeshment going on or gatekeeping. Same with abuse. Like if there's an abuse in a marriage or with kids, the corrupt reunification therapists or court appointed officials and experts that I'll put in quotes and say loosely, they say, well, it's not abusive, it's just inappropriate parenting. So they'll change the words.
I hate the word.
Oh my gosh. You hate the word what?
I hate the wordsmithing is what they call it.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah. If you know your way around a dictionary.
Oh, man.
Actually, in this case, probably a thesaurus too. It's like,
well, that's not abuse. It's just inappropriate parenting. He's fine. And it's just, and then you're
because inappropriate doesn't have any value.
Oh my word. So anyway, all that to say is I had a lot of emotions, anger, resentment, bitterness, hurt, pain. And yet still I'm like hoping, wishing, pleading that things will, I don't even know if I came to terms with the fact that he was done for at least 6 months. So, but anyway, I approached my bishop, or he approaches me and says, okay, we need to talk about Xander's ordination. And I said, let's see, is this about the ordination or the baptism? They're all getting jumbled. But anyway, I said, the bishop said to me, look, Julie, we know that he's not providing for you. We know that he has abandoned you, but he has not abandoned you for someone. And I just went like this.
Mouth wide open.
Jaw dropped. And I said, excuse me? I said, so, well, he has to abandon for someone, like it has to be sexual?
Someone other than himself. Because I could argue that he abandoned.
Well, yeah, I mean, he abandoned for music. And he has stated himself in his own interviews that you can find online that music became his mistress. He said it in his own interviews. And
like so post-divorce.
Mm-hmm. No, even during it. He's like, I felt like he's like, I was talking with a therapist and I felt like, music had become my mistress and I was kind of letting, what was the words, just neglecting my wife. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. He's thinking of me. But it was just like super telling. But when my bishop said he hasn't abandoned you for someone, so he is eligible and considered worthy to ordain and to baptize. And I just like stared at him, and I said, Bishop, this is why women leave the church. And he said, I know, and I agree with you. He said, but my hands are tied.
Well, he's not his bishop.
Yeah, and that was why. He said, we've taken this to the stake president, we've taken this to the area authority, and it's kind of gone up the chain of command and come back down. But ultimately, like we read the handbook, and I wanted to like throw the handbook in his face, even though I know he was like on my side and was wanting what was best for me, but he has nothing to do with the stewardship of the petitioner.
And he has to trust that wherever the petitioner is in his own spiritual journey of repentance or whatever his bishop thinks he needs, your bishop has to trust that it's unfolding the way that it should, that he's honest with his bishop and the bishop is honest with him. And if he is in a place where he should be allowed to do these things, your bishop has to trust that bishop, and that bites.
Oh my gosh. It blows some serious chunks. And I did not know what to think about that or say to that after. I was just fuming because I was like, how like dare you say this to me when you just said, we know that he's abandoned you, we know that he is not providing for you, but unless he's had sex and unless you can prove it, sorry.
Unless he's had an affair. Well, because here's the other side. Here's the devil's advocate is, according to you, he abandoned you.
Yeah.
He could be telling the story that you abandoned him.
Of course.
He could be telling his bishop the story that, you won't let him see the kids. You kicked him out. Yeah. And so when it comes to these things, it really sucks because having a dad in law enforcement, right? He always likes to play devil's advocate. And I think I've said on here before where I'd say, but Dad, that doesn't make sense. And he'd say, of course it doesn't make sense because you don't think like a criminal, It's like, you don't think, oh, well, the other person could be telling lies. That's not where your brain goes, right? But as law enforcement, somebody who is working cases, you have to assume that everybody's lying.
Yeah.
You have to do your due diligence and find the truth because you can't assume the truth from anybody. And his bishop has to assume that you're lying, and your bishop has to assume that he's lying. And so it is a he said, she said.
And I felt bad for my bishop. I did, even though I was mad at him. I knew it wasn't really him.
But you still want to take your anger out on him.
Yeah. And I said, I'm so sorry. I know that this is not your decision and that you're not doing this, but like, I'm fuming, Bishop. And he said, no, I know you are. And I understand. And I wish that I could do more or say more or prove more. But at the end of the day, yeah, there was no proof of anything sexual. There was no proof of abuse in their eyes, right? Whether it was in my eyes or not, it didn't matter, and I was not okay with it. But
you can't do anything.
No, and even if I did try to interfere, I would have been punished by the court. But I was punished by the court anyway.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get into that into the next podcast because we are now about 40 minutes in. So we can kind of finish this one in the next podcast for next week. But I wanted to round this out by saying that we have to remember that these bishops are volunteers. They are doing the best that they can. They are not trained therapists. They are not trained counselors. They're
literally volunteers.
Yeah.
They're not
men.
Psychologists. They're not trained in counseling. They are not. All they are is good men trying to live by the Spirit, trust in the Lord, that they will be guided and directed to do what he wants them to do. They are not like in the LDS religion, I guess we'll just say, because it's not culture, like in our doctrine, but also just our religion. Most people in the church that hold callings, even of authority, on a local level, until you get to the Salt Lake level, right? Until you are an apostle, nobody's paid. The apostles, they have like a living stipend, right? Because they are full. It's like their full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
But when Julie says a bishop or any of our local clergy members, they have full-time jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's why my dad was always gone, because he would be at work
he was
and
a
then he
lawyer
would
during the
go,
day.
yep, and then he'd go to the church at night and help people, and they're just doing their best, and as
So
much,
this is extra community service.
yeah,
On top
exactly.
of
And
all the
it's
things.
hours upon hours of
Yeah.
dedication and service, and I didn't want to take that out on him, but I was so angry. And I think part of the reason that I was so bugged is because, like, I did have proof, right? I had 10 years of vlogging. I had documented with footage that the dude left, that he was no longer in the picture, and had been gone for 2 months. And it wasn't enough. It didn't matter. Even if I showed it to them, even if I showed it to the courts, they want the dad to have the right at all costs.
This was my point too in some of this, is that it's really difficult because we're enmeshing the law
Mm-hmm.
with spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
The church, it's like the separation of church and state,
Yep.
right? It's really hard because to us it's all the same.
Yep.
It's our lives, one affects the other, but legally and technically they're not supposed to really interact a ton.
And like you said before, earlier today when we were talking, the church cannot get involved in the legal stuff, or they do their best to stay out of it. But the legal stuff does get involved into the church stuff. And they shouldn't be able to, but they do.
Starting with, in your decree, saying your ex will baptize and ordain your children.
Mm-hmm. And I will say I did agree to that stipulation. It says in the decree that the petitioner has the right to perform ordinations and baptisms as long as his priesthood leader deems him worthy. And I was like, yeah, I agree with that. But I was also under the assumption, or I don't even know his assumption. I was like, well, yeah, as long as the child chooses him, because the handbook also says it's up to whoever's getting baptized. They get to pick who baptizes. But because the stipulation says that, it doesn't matter whether the child wants him to baptize them or not, because it's in the decree. It states there that it's his right. Well, even though it says in the church handbook that they get to choose, the court will come and say, no, they don't. They don't. And I know this because this is happening to me. So we'll end this kind of with a continuation for next time, because I do want to talk about kind of what happened after that and what made me feel better in the end, and what I have kind of held on to keep me from leaving the church myself.
Well, to keep you grounded, yep, and to remember that it's the gospel is true, but people are not. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the only thing the Lord has to work with is imperfect people.
Yep. And I kind of was, I guess, saved by a quote from Elder Ezra Taft Benson at the time that kind of just made everything feel better, and just I kind of put it on the shelf and put it to bed, because I was really grappling, and I know that a lot of you are too. So stay tuned for next time, and we'll get more into the gritty parts of this, because this one is tough for me. Thanks for watching, and buy a hat.
Buy a hat.